The exile. The stars twinkled in the black abyss of space as the massive alien warship loomed over Earth. The great fleet of the Galactic Empire had come to judge humanity. For centuries, the humans had been a thorn in the side of the galaxy's more advanced civilizations. The Empire had watched as Earth's people slowly built their strength, rising from primitive creatures to a species capable of space travel. But this was a point of concern. The humans were unpredictable, aggressive, and far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. At first, the Empire had attempted to diplomatically handle the humans, but every attempt ended in failure. The humans refused to bow to anyone, even the mighty Empire. Time and again, their forces had clashed with alien fleets, each time emerging stronger than before. Now the decision had been made. The galaxy's most feared and most dangerous creatures would finally rid themselves of this human nuisance once and for all. The Empire's top leaders, an assembly of the most powerful and ancient species, agreed upon a plan. They would send the humans to a death world, a place so wild, so deadly, that no species, not even the Empire's greatest warriors, had ever returned from it. The death world would be the end of humanity, or so they thought. The humans had no idea of the fate that awaited them. No one on Earth had anticipated such a harsh sentence. A message from the Empire arrived, declaring that humanity would be exiled to the death world, a punishment for their defiance. The humans, as always, reacted with defiance, but they were powerless to stop it. Within hours, ships descended from the skies, sweeping up entire populations. People vanished without a trace, taken away from their homes, their families, their lives. The selected humans were thrown into the cold, metal cells of the Empire's ships, bound for their new hell. Among them was a diverse mix of people: scientists, farmers, engineers, soldiers, and even civilians who had been unlucky enough to be caught in the crossfire. They all shared one thing in common: they were humans, and they were about to face an unimaginable trial. The alien ships traveled faster than anything humanity had ever seen. Their speed was beyond comprehension, as they moved through the cold expanse of space like it was nothing. The humans, trapped in their cells, could do nothing but wait. Most of them were confused, terrified, and unsure of what awaited them. All they knew was that they were being sent to a planet where no one had ever returned from. As the journey continued, a sense of hopelessness began to settle in. Some began to accept their fate, their spirits broken by the sheer power of the Empire. Others remained defiant, refusing to give up, no matter how bleak their future seemed. They whispered to each other in hushed tones, sharing stories of home and wondering if they would ever see their families again. But above all, they could feel the weight of the alien ships around them, the heavy silence that hung in the air. The Empire believed that the humans would be exterminated on the death world, and soon the humans would believe it too. The ships finally arrived at the edge of the death world's atmosphere. The humans felt the violent tremors of the ship as it entered the planet's gravitational pull. The air grew thick with tension. The world below was a swirling mass of clouds and chaos. Massive storms raged across the surface. Lightning crackled through the thick clouds, and the ground shook with the power of earthquakes. The death world was alive in ways the humans had never imagined. The aliens had underestimated one thing: they thought the humans would break. They thought that the harsh environment of the death world would be enough to destroy them. But what they didn't realize was that humans had a quality that no other species could understand. Humans were survivors. Even in the worst of circumstances, they fought. They adapted. As the ships neared the planet's surface, the human cells began to shake violently. The air around them crackled with energy. They could hear strange, unfamiliar sounds echoing from outside. The world beyond the walls of their cells was alive with the power of nature. The aliens who had built their empire on the ability to dominate now found themselves worried. The humans were being released onto the death world's surface, their fate sealed by the judgment of the Empire. But as the humans were thrown into the wild, They would soon realize that this death world wasn't their death. It was the beginning of their true rise. The first humans stepped onto the surface of the death world. The air was thick and humid, with an almost suffocating pressure. The ground beneath them was unstable, with cracks and fissures opening up, revealing strange, glowing substances. The humans looked around, their eyes wide with fear and uncertainty. But even in this chaos, a flicker of determination sparked within them. The death world was a place of untold danger. There were creatures here that could kill with a single swipe, plants that could paralyze or eat living beings whole, and environments that could turn from calm to deadly in an instant. But it was not the end. Not for humans. Not for the ones who refused to die. As the humans took their first steps into the unknown, something changed. The trials they faced on this world, the creatures they encountered, and the environment itself would forge them into something new. They would become stronger. They would learn to harness the power of this savage land. And in doing so, they would unknowingly begin to transform into a force that could never be defeated. The Empire thought it had destroyed humanity, but in reality, it had given birth to a new, unimaginable power. The humans weren't just survivors. They were becoming something far greater than anyone could have predicted. The Death World's challenge. The harsh winds howled across the barren landscape, pushing the humans forward. The sky above them was a swirling mass of black clouds, lit occasionally by the flash of lightning. The ground beneath their feet was cracked and scarred, filled with jagged rocks and deep ravines. The planet's atmosphere was thick, suffocating even for those with the strongest lungs. The Earth-born exiles could feel the weight of the air pressing down on them, as though the planet itself was trying to crush them into the dust. But they kept moving. Each human was assigned a small group of supplies, barely enough to survive the first few hours, let alone days. They were given no maps, no guidance, only the assurance that help would not come. The aliens had already declared their judgment. This world was their prison, and they would never leave it. The survivors were left with little choice but to make the best of their situation. But there was something in the way they approached the challenge that the aliens had never considered. It was not fear or despair that fueled the humans' hearts. It was something else entirely: defiance. In the very first few hours, they began to show what they were truly made of. One of the humans, a former soldier named Marcus, immediately took charge. He was tall, muscular, and his face was weathered by years of battle. He had seen the worst of humanity, and yet he stood firm now, determined to lead the others. He understood survival better than anyone. He knew how to lead under the most extreme circumstances. "We stay together," Marcus barked. "Keep your eyes open, and trust no one but yourselves. We don't know what this world can throw at us yet." The others nodded, equally determined. They were scared, but their training, their instincts, and their sheer willpower pushed them forward. There was no room for weakness here. If they wanted to survive, they had to adapt quickly. Within hours, the death world began to make its first move. It was not just the constant shifting of the ground under their feet or the sudden gusts of wind that could knock a person off their feet. No, it was the creatures that began to emerge from the shadows. First came the ground tremors, a sign of something massive moving just beneath the surface. The ground cracked open, and from the depths of the earth emerged a creature unlike any the humans had seen before. Its body was covered in scales as black as the night sky, and its eyes glowed with an unnatural, otherworldly light. It was massive, easily 10 feet tall, and covered in thick armor-like skin. The creature moved with terrifying speed, its claws scraping against the rocky earth. "Get down," Marcus shouted, pulling his group behind the nearest rock formation. "Don't move unless you have to." The creature advanced, its movements quick and deliberate. It sniffed the air, searching for anything that might resemble prey. The humans held their breath, barely daring to move a muscle. Every instinct in them told them to run, but they knew that would only make them more vulnerable. Standing still was their best chance. The creature passed within inches of them, its massive jaws snapping shut with a terrifying click. But it didn't stop. Instead, it moved away, as if it had not noticed the humans at all. The group let out a collective sigh of relief, but their brief moment of calm was shattered when a loud screech filled the air. Another creature, this one much smaller but far more agile, swooped down from the skies above. It had wings, enormous leathery wings that stretched out like a bat's, and its claws were sharp enough to tear through metal. "Move!" Marcus yelled, pushing the group forward again. "Head for cover." The creatures of this death world were relentless, and there were many more that would come. As they continued through the dangerous terrain, the humans had to make quick decisions that would either keep them alive or see them consumed by the world they had been exiled to. But each time they encountered danger, they learned. They adapted, and they became stronger. Hours turned into days, and the humans quickly realized something. This world was not just trying to kill them. It was teaching them. Every step they took, every creature they fought, every obstacle they overcame was pushing them further towards something greater. They weren't just surviving. They were evolving. At night, the humans huddled together, sharing what little warmth they could find. They spoke in low voices, unsure of what tomorrow would bring. But there was one thing that remained constant: the fire in their hearts, the fire that refused to be extinguished. By the time the sun set on the second day, the humans had already made a crucial discovery. They had seen the true power of their new world, the raw, untamed force of nature. The planet might be harsh, but it was also an opportunity. The challenges here were unlike anything they had ever faced, but they were not the end. They were the beginning of something far greater. The humans had been exiled to a death world, but the death world was making them into something more. It was forging them into a new breed of warriors, one that would soon prove to be more than a match for anyone, even the mighty Empire. What the Empire had done was not just banish humanity. They had unknowingly created a force that would change the galaxy forever. And the humans, standing on the edge of that transformation, had no idea just how powerful they would become. But they were about to find out. Surviving the chaos. The days on the death world were long, and the nights were even longer. For the humans exiled to this barren and hostile planet, each hour was a test of survival. Every step they took felt like walking through a nightmare, but they had no choice but to keep going. The first real challenge came after the second night. The group had found shelter in a narrow cave system, hidden from the eyes of the predatory creatures that roamed the surface. It was not much, but it was enough for them to catch their breath. They gathered around a small fire, hoping the warmth would be enough to keep them alive through the cold. Marcus sat at the head of the group, silently watching the others. His sharp eyes scanned their faces, seeing the exhaustion, the fear, and the hope that still clung to them. These were humans, and despite the hardships they faced, they had something that no alien force could ever take away: resilience. "We need to keep moving," Marcus said after a moment, breaking the silence. "This place is too dangerous to stay in one spot for long. We need to find a way to make use of the resources here, or we'll starve." There were murmurs of agreement from the others. It was clear that they had already begun to learn the rules of the death world. They couldn't afford to be complacent. The longer they stayed in one place, the higher the chance they'd attract the attention of something far worse than the creatures they had already encountered. As the group set out the next morning, they moved with purpose. They were becoming stronger, faster, and more adept at navigating the hostile environment. Marcus had taught them how to stay low, how to read the signs of an approaching predator, and how to make use of whatever the planet had to offer. It was during one of their foraging expeditions that they encountered something that would change everything. The sky had grown dark, and the air had begun to hum with a strange energy. One of the soldiers, a young woman named Lana, had ventured too far from the group, searching for food. As she crept through a thick jungle of towering, twisted trees, she saw something shimmering in the distance. At first, she thought it was just a trick of the light, but as she drew closer, she realized it was something far more extraordinary. The ground was glowing with a faint blue light, emanating from beneath the surface. Something powerful was buried beneath the earth, and it was calling to her. Lana knelt down, brushing the dirt aside. What she uncovered was a strange crystalline structure, a large glowing shard of what seemed to be a metal or mineral that she had never seen before. It pulsed with a soft, rhythmic glow, as if it were alive. Her fingers trembled as she touched it. The moment her skin made contact, a surge of energy shot up her arm, sending a jolt of power through her entire body. It felt like lightning, but not painful. It was invigorating, like a deep primal energy awakening inside of her. She quickly pulled her hand away, heart pounding. She had no idea what this thing was, but it felt important. Lana carefully wrapped the crystal in cloth and tucked it into her pack. She knew she needed to tell Marcus, but as she turned to leave, she noticed something moving in the shadows. From behind the thick trees, a pair of glowing eyes appeared, watching her. A deep growl rumbled from the creature's throat. It was big, bigger than anything they had seen before. It had the body of a lizard, but the head of a massive feline predator, with fangs longer than Lana's arm. The creature's claws were sharp and deadly, and its eyes burned with hunger. Without hesitation, Lana sprang into action. She drew her sidearm, aiming for the creature's head, but before she could fire, it lunged at her, swiping with its claws. The force of the attack sent Lana sprawling backward, her weapon flying from her hand. Panic gripped her as the creature leaped forward again, its fangs closing in on her throat. But just as the creature was about to strike, a blur of motion rushed past her. Marcus had appeared, a figure of raw strength and determination. With no weapons, only his bare hands, he grappled with the creature, pulling it away from Lana. The beast fought back viciously, but Marcus was relentless. He twisted the creature's neck with one brutal motion, snapping it in half. The predator collapsed, lifeless. Lana lay there, breathing heavily, her heart still racing. Marcus extended a hand to her, helping her back to her feet. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice steady despite the danger they had just faced. I think so," Lana said, still shaken. "But we have a bigger problem. I found something." She pulled the glowing crystal from her pack and showed it to him. Marcus studied it carefully, his eyes narrowing. He could feel the strange power radiating from it. "This is not from here," he murmured. "It might be alien tech or something older, but it's powerful." The group gathered around Lana, each one eyeing the strange crystal. Marcus knew that whatever this was, it could be the key to surviving the death world, and possibly even turning the tide in their favor. "Get some rest," Marcus said after a moment. "We'll examine this further tomorrow, but we've just discovered something that could change everything. We've got a weapon now, and with it, we can start fighting back." The humans now had something that they could use, something that the death world itself had provided them. And for the first time since their exile, they began to believe they could survive. A new weapon. The days that followed were unlike anything the exiled humans had experienced. They had discovered a strange, glowing crystal, and Marcus was determined to uncover its secrets. It didn't take long before the group realized that the crystal wasn't just an object of power. It was a catalyst, a key to survival on the death world. The crystal, now carefully stored in one of their few secure bags, seemed to hum with an energy all its own. It pulsed with an eerie, yet reassuring glow, casting strange shadows against the cave walls. It was clear that the death world had given them something that could change the entire course of their exile. But they had to figure out how to use it. Marcus spent hours each day, along with Lana and a few of the other more scientifically inclined members of the group, examining the crystal. They had already tried to break it open, but it wouldn't budge. It wasn't like any material they had ever encountered. The surface was smooth and unyielding, despite its translucent, glowing hue. No matter how they tried to pry it apart, it remained whole. "What if this thing's like a key?" Lana mused one evening, looking at the crystal. What if it opens up something, some hidden technology? Marcus nodded, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. That's a possibility. But to what? To a weapon, maybe? Or a way to survive out here? The more they studied the crystal, the more they felt as though it held the answers they desperately needed. But time was running out. The death world didn't give them any room for idle curiosity. Every day was a battle for survival. One morning, the calm of the cave was shattered by a rumbling sound that reverberated through the ground. The earth trembled beneath their feet, and the walls of the cave shook violently. A large portion of the entrance collapsed, blocking the path they had been using to get outside. Panic set in. The humans scrambled to find another way out, but the cave had become their prison. Move! Marcus shouted, leading the charge as they attempted to find an alternate exit. They rushed deeper into the cave system, but the tremors seemed to grow stronger with each passing second. Something big was coming, something that was making the ground quake. It wasn't just a storm or natural disaster. They could feel it in the air. The death world itself was reacting to something. Keep moving, Marcus ordered. There's no time to waste. We need to get to higher ground. As the group made their way through the winding tunnels, they heard the unmistakable sound of something massive approaching. It wasn't just an earthquake anymore. There were footsteps, heavy, thudding footsteps. Something was coming for them. Marcus grabbed Lana by the arm. Do you still have the crystal? Lana nodded, holding it tightly. The energy it radiated felt stronger now, as if it was reacting to the growing threat. I have it. But Marcus, what are we going to do? We're trapped. Before Marcus could answer, a terrible roar echoed from the distance, shaking the very bones of the cave. The walls trembled in response, and then suddenly the ground split open in front of them. From the deep black chasm emerged a creature unlike anything they had ever seen. It was enormous, easily the size of a building, with thick, armored plates covering its body. Its massive jaws were lined with rows of sharp teeth, and its eyes glowed like molten lava. The creature roared again, shaking the air with its fury. The humans froze for a moment, paralyzed by fear. They had no weapons, nothing that could even begin to fight such a beast. But then, a strange thing happened. The crystal in Lana's hands began to glow brighter, its light pulsing in rhythm with the creature's movements. It was as if the crystal was calling out to the beast, warning it, or perhaps challenging it. Lana's fingers tightened around the crystal. Marcus, I think it's trying to tell us something. Without thinking, she held the crystal up high, hoping that it would respond to the energy around them. The moment she did, the crystal flared with a bright, blinding light. It shot out beams of energy that hit the creature square in the chest. The impact sent the monster stumbling backward. It howled in pain, its enormous form shaking as if struggling to regain control. The beams from the crystal were powerful, unlike anything the humans had seen before. Marcus watched in awe. This is it. This is our weapon. Lana looked down at the crystal again. It pulsed with an eerie light, almost as if it were reacting to the sound in the distance. What if it's not just the crystal? What if this thing is tied to the planet itself? Marcus glanced back at the crystal, a spark of realization lighting in his eyes. You might be onto something, Lana. If the planet is alive, and the crystal is reacting to the creatures, maybe it's not just a weapon. Maybe it's a way to communicate with the planet, to control it. The idea was almost too wild to believe. Could they actually control the Death World, the most dangerous planet in the galaxy, with a single crystal? And if they could, what would that mean for their future? Suddenly, the ground beneath them quaked once more, this time with greater force. The howling in the distance grew louder, and Marcus's instincts screamed at him to get moving. They didn't have much time. Whatever was coming, it was fast. We need to get to that plateau, now, he shouted. The group scrambled up the rocky slopes, using every bit of their strength to reach the top before the storm of creatures descended upon them. As they reached the summit, the view opened up before them, A vast expanse of the death world, teeming with life. But the most alarming sight was the dark shape rising from the distance, a massive army of deathworld creatures, each more terrifying than the last. They were closing in. Lana held the crystal in front of her, feeling the energy pulsing through her hand. If this thing can control them, now's the time to find out. With a deep breath, she lifted the crystal high, focusing all of her energy and will into it. The sky above seemed to darken as the crystal's glow intensified, casting an eerie light across the landscape. The creatures below stopped in their tracks, their movements faltering as if caught in some invisible force. Then the crystal pulsed again, once, twice, and then a massive surge of energy shot out from it. The ground shook, and the creatures paused, their eyes narrowing as if they were sensing something. A moment of silence followed. And then, like a sudden shift in the wind, the creatures began to turn away. Slowly, cautiously, they retreated, their once mighty forms now retreating into the shadows of the Deathworld's vast terrain. Marcus stood in stunned silence. It worked. The humans had done it. They had found a way to fight back. And for the first time since their exile, the Deathworld had become less of a prison, and more of a battlefield they could control. But at what cost? What else had they unleashed with the crystal? And what would the galaxy's most powerful empires think when they discovered that humans had become the true masters of the Deathworld? The journey had just begun. The hidden power of the Deathworld. The victory against the Deathworld's creatures, though temporary, had given the humans a glimmer of hope. The crystal, mysterious, ancient, and powerful, had saved them. But it had also opened up new questions. What was the true nature of this artifact? And why had the Deathworlders not been able to use it to their advantage? As they rested on the plateau, the group couldn't help but feel a shift in the atmosphere. The creatures had retreated, but it felt like the planet itself was watching them. Every breeze, every tremor in the ground, seemed to carry with it a message they couldn't yet understand. Lana looked down at the crystal, now resting in her hand. It had stopped glowing as intensely, but the hum it gave off was ever present, a steady vibration that seemed to resonate with her very bones. "I don't think we've scratched the surface of what this thing can do," she said quietly, almost as if speaking to herself. Marcus, standing beside her, glanced over the landscape. "No, we've barely begun to understand, but we got something now. This world might just be our key to the galaxy. And I'm sure the galaxy is looking at us." His voice was laced with caution, but there was an undeniable determination in his tone. The Deathworlders had sent humanity to this planet, expecting them to perish. They'd wanted to eliminate the weak species once and for all, to show the galaxy that humans were no match for the galaxy's true apex predators. But what the Deathworlders didn't realize was that they had awakened something far more dangerous than they could have ever anticipated. Lana stood tall, holding the crystal up to the sky, feeling the warmth of the energy it radiated. Maybe it's not just the Deathworlders who have underestimated us. Maybe the whole galaxy has. Marcus gave her a thoughtful look. "You're right. If we can control this planet, we can control the galaxy. But we need to be careful. We don't know what other forces are watching. We might have just made ourselves the most powerful players in a game we didn't even know existed." A rustle of movement drew their attention. One of the other humans, Hayla, approached cautiously, her eyes narrowed as she surveyed the surroundings. "Something's wrong," she said softly. The group turned to her, instinctively falling into a defensive posture. "What do you mean?" Marcus asked. Kayla glanced nervously around the plateau, her eyes darting from one corner to another. "I don't know. It feels different, like the planet is reacting to us." Just as she spoke, a low, guttural growl sounded from the edge of the plateau. The group tensed, their weapons drawn, as a massive figure emerged from the shadows. It was a creature unlike any they had seen before, taller, more massive, and with a menacing presence that made the hairs on the back of their necks stand up. Its dark, Leathery skin was adorned with jagged, bone-like protrusions, and its eyes glowed a fierce red. It was a Deathworlder, but this one was different, bigger, more intelligent, and more terrifying than any they had faced. "I've never seen anything like this," Lana murmured, clutching the crystal tighter. Marcus took a step forward, his voice calm but firm. "Get back, all of you. I'll handle this." But before he could take another step, the creature did something unexpected. It did not charge. Instead, it stopped and tilted its head as if studying them. "What's it doing?" Kayla whispered, her voice barely audible. The creature's eyes seemed to narrow, and for a moment, there was an eerie silence. Then, with a sudden movement, it spoke. "You are not like the others," it said in a deep, gravelly voice. "You are different. You have something that we do not." The humans froze in shock. The creature was speaking, fluent, perfect galactic common. They had no idea how it knew their language, but there was no time to question it. "What do you want?" Marcus demanded, his hand resting on the hilt of his weapon. The creature's red eyes flickered with amusement. "I want nothing from you," it said. "But you have something that the Deathworlders cannot control. You are more powerful than they ever imagined. You are the masters of this world now." Lana's grip on the crystal tightened. "We're not here to rule. We're just trying to survive." The creature's gaze turned to her, and its expression softened slightly. "Survival. You don't understand, do you? This world, this death world, has chosen you to wield its power. The crystal, it is not just a weapon. It is a key to something greater than you can fathom." Marcus and Lana exchanged a glance, the weight of the creature's words settling heavily on their shoulders. They had come to this planet as exiles, expecting to fight for their lives. But now, they were being told they were part of something much larger than themselves. The creature took a step forward, its massive frame casting a long shadow across the plateau. "The Deathworlders did not send you here by accident. They have awakened something far older, something far more dangerous. And now, it will be your responsibility to control it. If you do not, it will destroy you all." Lana's heart raced as the creature's words sunk in. The galaxy's most dangerous world had become their greatest weapon, and their greatest threat. But could they truly control it, or had they simply unleashed a force beyond their understanding? The crystal in her hand pulsed again, its glow intensifying. Was it a warning, or a sign that they had only just begun to uncover the Deathworld's true power? Marcus's voice was firm as he turned to the group. "We need answers, and we need them fast. Get ready. This isn't just about survival anymore. This is about taking control of our future." As the creature vanished back into the shadows, the humans knew they were at a crossroads. The Deathworld had tested them, but they had passed the trial. Now they had to make a choice: embrace the power they had unlocked, or face the consequences of unleashing something far more dangerous than they could imagine. The next phase of their journey had just begun, the dawn of the human empire. The words of the Deathworlder creature echoed in their minds, creating an unspoken tension within the group. They had been exiled, left to perish on a hostile planet that was more dangerous than any of them had ever imagined. But now, they were more than survivors. They had become something greater. Humanity had always been underestimated by the rest of the galaxy, seen as weak and fragile. Yet, in the face of impossible odds, they had proven their strength, resourcefulness, and adaptability. And now, it seemed, they had something the Deathworlders and the galaxy's other powerful species did not: a weapon of unimaginable power, one that could reshape the balance of the universe itself. The crystal's glow was no longer just a faint pulse. It had become a beacon, a source of power and energy that hummed through the air with a low, resonant vibration. It was as if the planet itself had chosen them, recognizing their strength and potential. The Deathworlders had believed that they were casting humanity into a death trap, but what they had unknowingly done was give them the very means to become the galaxy's next rulers. Lana stood at the edge of the plateau, her eyes fixed on the horizon. The sky was still dark, but there was a sense of anticipation in the air, as if something monumental was about to unfold. The crystal in her hand seemed to pull her in, urging her to understand its true power. She could feel its energy flowing through her, an intoxicating force that whispered promises of victory and domination. "We need to make a decision," Marcus said, his voice low but firm. "We can't keep hiding. The galaxy is already watching us. The Deathworlders have underestimated us. They think we're just another species they can crush. But we have something they don't. This planet, and the power it holds." Lana nodded, turning to face him. "You're right. But how do we control it? How do we use this power without letting it destroy us?" Marcus gave a grim smile. "We take it one step at a time. We learn everything we can about this world and what it's capable of. The Deathworlders have left us a tool, but it's up to us to figure out how to use it." The group gathered around, each of them contemplating the implications of their newfound power. The creature's warning still lingered in the air. The Deathworlders had awakened something far older and more dangerous, something that could destroy them all if they didn't learn to control it. But there was no turning back now. "We need to find out what this crystal really is," Lana said, her voice resolute. "We've only scratched the surface. We need to know everything. Its history, its origins, how it works. If we don't, we'll be no better than the Deathworlders, blindly wielding power we don't understand." The others agreed, their faces set with determination. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity had taken the first step toward becoming a true superpower. As the sun began to rise, casting a pale light over the Deathworld, a sense of purpose filled the air. The humans had once been cast out, exiled to a planet where they were meant to die. But now, they stood on the precipice of something far greater. They were no longer the weak, insignificant species the galaxy had thought them to be. They were survivors, warriors, and now, masters of a world that held the key to the galaxy's future. The galaxy would soon learn that humanity was not to be underestimated. They had been given the means to reshape the universe, and they were not going to let that power slip through their fingers. The Deathworlders, the galaxy's most dangerous species, had made a grave mistake. They had thought they were sending humanity to their doom, but in reality, they had just unleashed a force that would change the galaxy forever. Lana raised her hand, holding the crystal high as it pulsed with energy, a symbol of humanity's newfound strength. "We are no longer exiles. We are the future of the galaxy. And we will make sure the galaxy knows our name." With that, the humans began their journey to conquer the Deathworld, to unlock its secrets and harness its power. The galaxy would soon feel the weight of humanity's rise to supremacy. The time of the Deathworlders was over, and the time of humanity had just begun. And as they moved forward, united in purpose, they knew that they were not just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting to become the new rulers of the galaxy, an empire forged on the strength of humanity, a power that no one could ignore.